Conservationists are calling on Kiwis to march against the government's so-called war on nature. There's Greenpeace, there's Forest and Bird, and there's Kiwis against seabed mining. They're going to descend on central Auckland tomorrow to protest the Fast Track Approvals Bill, which is going through Parliament at the moment. They say the bill, which is designed to speed up the consent for building projects, will also put New Zealand on a fast track to environmental destruction. We've got former Green Party co-leader and the Executive Director of Greenpeace, Russell Norman, in the studio. Thanks for joining us.
Morning, Lloyd. I'm looking forward to the pole dancing video.
Oh, said okay. No one ever.
It's impressive. I was going to say, just because you go to a hen's night, the fact that you're going to show the video shows you're not a chicken.
Yeah, oh, I like that. That's good.
Yeah,
you've always been good at puns and dad jokes, so I quite like that. So tell me, why are you so brassed off at the Fast Track Approval Bill?
Because it overrides every environmental protection law. So they've got this special law they're forcing through at the moment, and what it says is all the other laws that protect nature, like the Resource Management Act, the Conservation Act, the Wildlife Act, they all get overruled by this one fast track law, which means that even if something's been rejected by the Supreme Court, like seabed mining, or rejected by other courts, like this coal mine in a pristine forest, 3 ministers can decide they're just going to force it through anyway. So it's just outrageous.
So I guess the reason they're doing this is because there's just not one line of red tape, 2 lines through. There's so many different things that are in the way that's too hard to get stuff done, and they're going to override it. Is that essentially it?
And so if you look at the actual evidence instead of the rhetoric, the Infrastructure Commission did a report looking at consenting, and what they found is for large projects, and remember this is supposed to be about infrastructure, the fast track bill, not just building a house, right? It's meant to be big projects. So for big projects, the cost of consenting in New Zealand is 0.5% of the cost of the overall project to 2%. And that is in line with international consenting costs. So we're pretty much the same as everyone else. They just want to force through a whole bunch of projects that the courts have said are so environmentally destructive that they've rejected them.
They said that, and I think Chris Bishop has said this a few times, that this law is based on Labour's policy that they announced during COVID, which was to fast track some, I think it was shovel-ready projects and things like that to get it through.
Yeah.
And so that's their answer when Labour criticises them for it. So.
Yeah, well, it's completely untrue. Anyone who looks at it closely. So under Labour's fast track law, which by the way we complained about, right, didn't agree with it, right, but under their law, it's an independent panel that makes the decisions and the environmental laws still apply. Under Chris Bishop's law, this fast track thing that he's doing, it's 3 ministers, 3 jokers who, very problematic. They decide, not the independent panel, they just give advice. 3 ministers decide, and all environmental laws, or almost all environmental laws, can be overridden in this process. And Supreme Court decisions overturned, projects which are disastrous for the environment can come back through this process. So these 3 guys get to overrule all other environmental laws.
Okay, and you don't have to be that smart to realise that that opens the door hugely for corruption. So companies that donated to these ministers and their parties, is that essentially what you're alleging, that these big donors could get their way?
Yeah,
you're buying policy.
Obviously, that's what's going on. I mean, when you look at, obviously that's what could happen under this process, right? So you have these political donations coming into parties, and then you have these 3 guys making decisions. Chris Bishop was the chair of the National Party campaign, right? It's not like he's like some guy who's just he was chair of their campaign. He knows about the big donations that went into that political campaign. He was the chair of the committee, the campaign committee. The thing is that we did a poll recently, we did a Horizon, did a poll for us, right? And most New Zealanders do not want development that causes more harm to nature. They're okay with development, but they want protections around it. 9 out of 10 people are in the place where they go, we're not opposed to all development, but we want to make sure that not more of nature is destroyed, because we've already lost so much, right? We've already lost 90% of all our wetlands. They're gone. You were talking about, it's World Oceans Day, right? Shane Jones just increased the quota for bluefin tuna. You know how many bluefin tuna are left? It's 8%. We're down to 8%. He just increased the quota to kill more bluefin tuna, right? So we're dealing with a government which is wildly out of step with public opinion, because Kiwis do not want to destroy more of nature, but their donors obviously are going to have a bigger influence in that, and that's why we've got to march.
Is there a way that this could be used for good, though? Could they use this to go, let's fast track a windmill, a massive wind farm? Could we use this to fast track a solar farm?
And so, and Chris Bishop's been saying this a lot, right? Because he thinks that this will help sell the thing, right? So that's his story.
But it's, I mean, they could though. He's not wrong with it.
Okay, so let's take the example, which is the most prominent one, which is offshore wind in the South Taranaki Bight, right?
Yeah.
And so the offshore wind companies have just come out and said, if you do sand mining, which is the project that the government wants to promote, it's in the coalition agreement between New Zealand First and National, right? If you do this mining project, seabed mining project in the South Taranaki Bight, we can't do offshore wind because we can't put all the infrastructure on the seabed if you're running big mining through the middle of all the cables and the things, right? So you've got to choose. Do you want offshore wind or do you want seabed mining? And we know which way the government's going because it's already in their coalition.
But shouldn't they go to offshore wind?
Well,
just go to offshore. I mean, it's the super fund that's paying for that big wind farm.
And the offshore wind company is saying we want to go through a normal consenting process where we get buy-in from communities, we make sure that the environment's protected, we want to go through a normal process. But the seabed mining company, which lost in the Supreme Court's gone, and one of its major shareholders, of course, donated to the National Party chair of the committee, right? But that company is going, we want to use the fast track to avoid all these environmental rules because we lost in the Supreme Court on that. And that's why we're marching on Saturday, 1 p.m. at Aotearoa Square.
How many people you expect?
I expect there'll be thousands, but you know what? If you want to influence this policy, you've got to turn up, right? So, like, you know, first rule of having an influence of protecting nature is you've got to turn up. So I'd really encourage people to come.